Hi everyone, welcome back to Front Page MMA. Today I'm lucky enough to be joined by Alex Morono, who fights Anthony Pettis on December 19th. How you doing, Alex?
Man, good. I just got home from a training session like 1 minute ago. I did a good grappling session and some strength and conditioning. Feeling good, man. I'm feeling the hard training from that last fight camp against Reese.
I was going to say, so your last fight obviously wasn't too long ago. Do you feel like it's beneficial for you to jump straight in there again against probably the toughest fight of your career?
Yeah, so I went all 3 rounds with Reese and felt good. If I could have gone 2 more rounds in that fight. I got home. I had some like bruises to heal up, mostly on my hand, and then I had Thanksgiving, which was nice, and so I had the hard 2 weeks off. And, I got the fight kind of short notice, and I blasted into fight camp last week. And as soon as I kind of like shook off the initial soreness and diet change, I really realized like how good a shape I was in. So I'm kind of rolling with that going into this week. And like, man, even in my grappling rounds, my wrestling rounds, I was crushing it. And man, I feel good. I'm really excited to fight. The timing couldn't have been better. And it's such a dynamite fight card to be on, man. I'm really excited.
So before we get into the Pettis fight, I quickly want to ask about your last fight, that mouthpiece moment. What was that like to be in there during that kind of crazy time?
Yeah, you know what? I've said it a few times. I've watched I don't know how many fights, thousands. I've been to hundreds of fights. I've never once seen that before. So it was such a new experience where I was just kind of waiting. Like I couldn't get mad. It wasn't Ree's fault. It wasn't my fault. It wasn't the ref's fault. It was just one of those things. I was like, all right, I'm gonna be patient. Let him figure it out, and then hopefully get back to the fight as soon as possible. But it was more funny than anything else. So
Yeah.
if anything, it was kind of cool to be a part of the first time that's ever happened in the UFC.
Yeah, definitely. So anyway, how did the fight with Anthony Pettis come about? Like, what was it like on your end? How did you find out, and like, how did you feel when you got the contract?
Yeah, man, it was awesome. Usually I'll catch an email from Sean Shelby, especially when they know I'm looking for a fight. And I'll tell you, like, a lot of people don't know what happens behind the scenes with the UFC. They're so awesome and professional and easy to work with. But yeah, usually Sean will hit me up with a fight offer, or he'll contact my coach with the fight offer. And it's funny. Last Tuesday I'm teaching a kids class, and we got a really big tournament we're going to this weekend. So the classes have been packed. And we've been working hard. And I noticed my phone's blowing up. Naturally, I'm not going to go answer it in class. But then the program director at my gym, she steps on the mat. She's like, "Hey, your coach from Dallas is on the phone." And I'm like, "Okay, I either got some really good news coming or some really bad news." I knew it was something big, so I talked to him. I'm like, "Coach, what's up?" He's like, "Morono, I got a fight for you on the 19th." And my teammate, coach's main guy Jeff Neal's headlining that card. And it's like, I got Anthony Pettis. He's like, "Are you going to take it?" And I'm like, "Absolutely." And then I'm like, "Cool, coach, I'll call you back after class." So before class ends, I see my phone dinging, and they had already announced the fight. Because, like when they asked me if I would take the fight, I was like, sure. But I'm like, will Pettis take the fight?
Yeah.
Will the UFC be cool to book it? So there's a bunch of unknowns. But I mean, they announced the official fight like 5-10 minutes after I accepted. I don't know how they find out or who announces these fights, but that was the quickest turnaround I've ever seen by far. And then so it was real, like it was real in that moment. And my striking coach was with me. He's like, "I guess the fight's on, so let's get to work." It was pretty cool.
Yeah, definitely. So Anthony Pettis said that he sees this fight against you as like the first step on the run towards the welterweight title. He wants to make kind of another run at the belt. What areas of your game do you think makes you a good person to kind of ruin those plans, so to speak? What makes you the one to kind of not be a stepping stone for him to get back to the title?
Man, I'm a gamer. I never take a fight that I'm not 100% confident that I'll win. I'm like willing to give my life to take his. And I don't think he's saying it's going to be an easy fight, but I mean,
No.
this is a fight to prove that I belong with the top dogs.
Yeah.
In the UFC, especially in the welterweight division, it's very hard to break into the top 15. You got to go on like a 4, a 5, a 6, a 7 fight win streak. And to have such perfection at this level is very hard to do. That's why guys like Habib are so admirable. That's why a guy like Leon Edwards, who has like a 7 or 8 fight win streak, is so impressive because it's hard to do. So like I know I can hang and beat these dudes at a higher level, but getting the opportunity to prove that can be very challenging. And I feel like I was very gifted with this opportunity, and I am looking to make a statement and to make the most out of it. And people know I'm a dog when I fight. I enjoy the hardship in a fight, and I don't think Anthony Pettis does. So I'm going to really try to bring the fight to him and drag it out and grind it out and cut him open and do some damage and make it a fun one.
Yeah. So, when I look at your record, your wins, you've got the most kind of balanced win record. It's like pretty much even between knockouts, submissions, and decisions. In an ideal world, how do you win this one?
You know what? When I got to the UFC, getting the finishes was everything I wanted to do because, like, I started training because I was a fan and I wanted to be the fighter that I enjoyed watching. That's why I prefer to stand most of the time. But dude, putting these dudes in the UFC away is very hard. The times I would like really gun for a knockout, I wouldn't get it, and then so I've actually changed my mindset. I try to do as much damage in 15 minutes as possible, and generally the finish will come there. Most of my submission victories come from guys trying to take me down. So, I don't know. My goal always, no matter what, no matter who I'm fighting, is to try to get a knockout, and so that's going to continue to be my goal. But again, like I'm planning on 15 hard minutes of just doing damage in this fight, and I'm sure I'll be able to achieve that goal.
Yeah, so you mentioned that to kind of get a crack at the top 15, you need a solid 7 or 8 fight win streak. When you first signed to the UFC, you did kind of struggle to put a good chain of wins together. But since you signed with Fortis MMA, well, since you went to Fortis MMA, sorry, you've won 4 out of the last 5, and the first one was a performance bonus, a fight and 8 bonus. So, what would you say is the kind of the biggest thing that's changed since moving to Fortis MMA?
Me not having to make every single decision. So like when I was in charge of my own fight camp and my training,
Yeah.
like I have my coaches at my gym, but we would like sit down and like make decisions together on like what the game plan is, what to work on. And thankfully now I don't have to do that. Now it's up to my coach, Coach Safe, who is extraordinarily like worldly more experienced than myself. So kind of like taking the decision making factors out of it, not entirely, but primarily has helped. So I'm like, Coach, this is the fight. These are the facts. What can I do? What should I do? And he's like, Morono, I already know exactly what we're going to do. Let's start to practice it. Let's do this. Let's do that. So just the guidance, like the high level guidance is so beneficial. And after my first fight camp with Coach, I was like really studying how he, works with the fighters, how he works with the UFC. And I knew it would be such a missed opportunity to not give him that control over my career, and it's paid off dividends since.
If there was like one kind of aspect of your game you think really came on since joining Fortis, what would you say it would be? Well, where do you feel you've improved the most since making the change?
Being able to kind of like implement my skill set as a whole, because like some fights, if I liked the style, I would like choose to brawl
Yeah.
because brawling is fun, but it's not the safest. A good example. So I fought a guy in James Muntasri, and like I've always been proud of my kickboxing, and so my game plan was to out kick this Olympic qualifying Taekwondo kicker. In hindsight, it was kind of a stupid plan. So in the fight, I'm not quite able to out kick him in the first round. So thankfully, I was able to kind of like adapt and overcome, and I started to really put some pressure on him and box him up a storm and do some like pummeling and really like land high volume punches. But now like the game plans are just like a little more like economical. They're more kind of centered towards my style and my strengths. So that's helped. That's helped quite a bit.
Yeah, definitely. So at the gym just now, there's loads of big fights coming up for some of the other fighters at the gym. Like you've got Ryan Spann, Jeff Neal, Diego Ferreira, and Macy Chiazon all have big fights coming up soon. What's the atmosphere like in the gym, knowing that everyone's got these big opportunities coming up?
It's good motivation to like work really hard because you look around the room and you see like nothing but high level pros, nothing but UFC guys and girls, and it's just fun. Like we all like the energy is fed off of one another. Plus our coach, what I think is the main benefit of success at a higher level, he gives really good pre and post training speeches. So he always really fires us up right before we get to work. And man, it really is like the higher level of training. And it's not something you can experience until you're actually kind of like in the trenches and in the thick of it. And again, it's just like, it's very motivating. And I really am happy to be where I'm at with Fortis.
Definitely. One thing that different fighters can have different attitudes towards is like when it comes to fighting a teammate. So I'm not asking for you to trash talk or anything, but you and Jeff Neal, of course, are both rising welterweights. Would you have any sort of issues going against him, considering he's someone you train with and see every day?
Yeah, Jeff is the man, and he will be champion. And there's absolutely nothing anyone in the UFC could do to have us ever fight each other. Like our coach would never ever allow that. I would never ever want to, and I hope Jeff wouldn't want to. And I'll be honest, man, Jeff is something special, dude. He's got a skill set on him. He's truly got hands of steel. I don't think that's a fight that I would want to take anyway. But like also in the past, if they're like, hey, for millions of bucks, would you fight this guy, dude? I think we would fight anyone for the right price. Like I'd fight my grandma for a couple million. I'm just kidding. My grandparents have passed since, but but that's not the case. But no, to answer the question, no. But and also to even be like asked, if like that fight potential is an opportunity, it's actually like an honor because like my perspective, Jeff is like truly high level. And again, to be in the same realm as like Jeff and Pettis and these guys, it's just such like I don't want to beat the same drum, but it is really an honor. It motivates me to really put on a master class of skills as a martial artist when I am fighting, to be in the same conversation as these guys.
Definitely. Kind of to change subject a little bit. Nico Price, also a former opponent of yours, fought Jeff Neal as well. Obviously had his recent fight over Cowboy overturned from a draw to no contest due to like marijuana use. And I know his win over you also got overturned to no contest. And generally speaking, how do you feel about those rules? I know a lot of the MMA community have a lot of kind of pushback against these like marijuana laws from the commissions. So what's your take on it?
Yeah, so man, I like Nico a lot. I respect him as a fighter,
Yeah.
and that's a fight I actually predict will run back.
Mm-hmm.
I'm hoping one more time and I win it, and then maybe a third time for the grudge match. But it sucks seeing it go overturned. However, I know the Nevada State Athletic Commission threshold for marijuana is very low, so and I'm not too sure. I'm assuming this, but like that means you had to have been roasting one up like during fight week, or even like the day of the fight, maybe the day before the fight. I don't know, but like it's a pretty standard rule. It seems like it's pretty easy to not break so long as you have some discipline. I don't think you should be able to like to smoke it up like the day of the fight, because that certainly does alter effects. I think you also shouldn't be able to like drink alcohol the day of a fight and go into a fight drunk. Not that happens, but like that would certainly change some outcomes. But I do think they need to alter the rules on like cannabis usage. It's such a common practice amongst combat sports and even like professional athletes at all levels, because it does help with rest and recovery and everything. But I do think there should be like the in competition usage is explained to me like from weigh-ins till after the fight is in competition. And I do think they should be very strict on banning a lot of different substances in that window. But beyond that window, which is a very vast amount of time, we should be pretty free.
Yeah, I think that's pretty fair. That's kind of all the things I have to do with the like recent news and recent topics. So I like to talk a bit about your career kind of earlier on. So you had a number of fights for Legacy FC where you won the welterweight title, of course. After you got that title, did you feel like the UFC was going to come calling sooner or later? Did you think it was about to happen at that point?
No, I didn't expect it. I did not expect it though. It was funny. I've always set goals relative to my like immediate reach. So like winning the legacy belt was my primary goal, not making it to the UFC. And then like when I won the legacy belt, I already had a fight to win sub only match planned after that. And I actually wanted to defend the belt. And if the UFC called, great. But if not, I wasn't like expecting it. And sometimes, especially now, I think local fighters, they put a lot of eggs in their UFC basket, and they kind of like overshoot their immediate goals, and they don't put the importance of like the high level local fights they have in front of them. And again, they overlook some fighters, and then they get like really heartbroken if they lose a fight on the local scene. And that's where you do a lot of your learning. Like my striking coach and I, we've been in the MMA game a long time. We've been training together well over a decade. We have like a theory on getting like a 10 victory buffer before you get to the UFC, because we've seen guys get signed at like 6-0 or 7-0 or 7-1, and then they have some wins and losses in the UFC, and maybe the record is like 9-4, and that's not very good. So like I think having 10 victories before you get to the UFC is a really good safeguard in being able to cushion any potential losses you may take. But no, it was funny. Expectations were always again very immediate, and it made getting to the UFC so awesome. And then even when I was in the UFC, I was like, all right, coach, let's see how it goes. And like lo and behold, I'm on my 12th fight, my 4th contract in. Very proud of what I've been able to accomplish again at this high level. and the sky really is the limit, especially now fighting ranked number 12 against Anthony Pettis, a guy I've been watching forever, a guy I've always looked up to. And now I'm excited to be the one to beat him up and then have like these up and coming fighters watch and look up to me. The cycle is very cool. And I'm just happy to be at this stage of that cycle.
So is that sort of piece of advice you'd give to a younger regional fighter? Don't set your goals too far in particular. Focus on where you are now and do the best you can at that point in time.
I mean, yeah, like set like a 5-year goal and then set a 1-year goal. And then most importantly, set like a 3-month goal, which more so means like you get a fight, you have a serious fight camp, and you're focusing on that fight at hand, not looking ahead. And that's one thing, you know, ever since I was a teenager, I would always have these fight camps. You know, I'd find a fight like 8, maybe 10 weeks in advance. So I would have like, you know, a 6-week-long fight camp to really do my job. And I'll tell you, like pro fights, amateur fights, boxing, kickboxing, even jiu-jitsu, MMA, I've had maybe 40 or planned fights in my career, and I've not had one ill-prepared fight camp. I've always over-prepared and trained my ass off for every single fight, no matter what, each fight camp better than the last. And I think that's what allowed me to be successful at this higher level.
Fair enough, yeah. So when you did win the Legacy title, it was less than 2 weeks before you were stepping into the cage for the UFC. Were you happy for it to be that way, or ideally would you have had that time to prepare and have a proper full training camp and things like that?
No, I compare my UFC debut to this Anthony Pettis fight.
Right.
You know, I caught it on 2 weeks' notice. This one I had 3 weeks' notice. So it's like it's enough time to prepare, but not like really break my body down.
Yeah.
And for my Legacy fight, I was ready for a 5-round war. I was in such incredible shape for that fight that I stayed in good shape for that Noke fight. And, you know, I had got cut in that Legacy fight, so I wasn't training. But I did have that fight to win jiu-jitsu match. So I was still like doing sprints and trying to stay in as much shape as I could. But, you know, I was a big underdog in that Noke fight, in my debut fight, much like I think I'll be in the Pettis fight. There's no pressure on me, all the pressure on my experienced opponents. It just allows me to really be free and have some fun, and I'm really looking forward to that. And it was funny, after my UFC debut the week after, I still did that fight to win match, the sub-only match, and it was cool. I won that match too. It was a really fun like month of combat sports.
You must have been kind of riding high that month, feeling yourself a wee bit after those wins.
Yeah, it was cool.
So do you enjoy like being underdog and kind of being able to have these like rocky moments where you might feel everyone's rating you off and you get to go and prove everyone wrong?
Yeah, I prefer that. Just and not that stress really ever gets to me. But like when you're a big favorite, you know, you're like expected to win. Whereas when you're the underdog, you know, you're not. So there's just no pressure. You have everything to win and really very little to lose. And it's a very fun scenario.
Yeah. One thing I wanted to ask about, the mouthguard incident wasn't the only strange thing you've had happen in your career. Back in 2014, you might know where I'm going with this.
I got it. I know.
What must that be like? What are you thinking?
That was strange, you know, and I know the rules well. And in the fight, the dude, so like in the second round of our fight, I hit a sweep from half guard. And as soon as I swept the guy, this was in like an old crappy boxing ring, he like dipped under the ropes. So the ref stopped us and reset us. And as soon as he reset us, I was on top, and the dude tried to reverse me with an underhook. So I went for a guillotine and ended up in my closed guard. But when the ref had separated us before that, he took his mouth guard out to argue with the ref, and it was still, so he had no mouthpiece in. And I feel him bite on my chest. And I remember saying, I'm like, what the fuck? Did you just bite me? Not thinking it was illegal, just thinking it was weird. And then when the second round ended, I stood up, and the ref looked at me, and he saw like a bite mark on my chest. He's like, did he bite you? And I was like, yeah, he bit me. And he was like, oh. And then I heard the ref talking to the commissioner in Texas. And he was like, Commissioner, this dude bit him. What do I do? And the commissioner looked at him seriously. He was like, disqualify him now. And I was like, oh, shit, this fight's over. It was really weird. Oddly enough, I actually fought that dude again a few months later and triangle choked him in the first round. But then in the back room after the fight, he was cool with me. He had stolen some tickets from the promoter. So the promoter took it out of the dude's fight purse. So the dude didn't make much money at all. And he sucker punched the promoter and then got arrested in the back room. Dude, it was wild. That dude was a character, to say the least, man.
Definitely.
I'm glad he's not really in the mix anymore.
So after that second meeting, when you say that he was cool with you in the back, did you bring up that biting incident, or was it kind of just let bygones be bygones?
No, so after he bit me, that day he came in the back room like on his knees asking for forgiveness, and I was like, yo dude, get up, this is weird. I was like, you're forgiven, get out of my, like, get out of here, you're making it really weird, like
Yeah,
let it be done. But I mean, no, it was, I actually don't really like that people bring it up. Not that, I mean, it was funny that you asked, but I just
yeah,
hate that I have a DQ on my record. And and what sucks is in the first round I had him in an armbar, and he was like screaming, and that's like, and the ref even said in the back room for the rules, he's like, if you scream in a submission, that's a verbal tap. And I
yeah.
really wish the ref would have stopped the fight right then and there. I wouldn't have got bit. I would have had a submission victory on my record. It would have been way better. But I mean, whatever. It's a funny story to tell after the fact.
Yeah. I know it's like a kind of weird one. You can't really control these things, but things like the bite, like the mouthguard incident, do you kind of find it funny having these sort of wee moments to kind of talk about in your career? Something interesting to add to the mix?
I mean, sure, yeah, it makes for a unique career. Plus, I plan on being a coach. I am a coach now, but even when I'm done fighting, I want to be an experienced coach. It's nice to be able to be in these scenarios, so I'll actually have some insight that I can give some of my fighters if they ever unfortunately catch themselves in the same setup.
Definitely. Kind of going way back now. When you were 17, now this is according to Wikipedia, so if I'm wrong, correct me. When you were 17, your parents bought you your membership to your first boxing gym. Is
Correct?
that something that you were asking for, or is that something they wanted to get you into as a child, as a young
Yeah,
person?
I'll tell you, man. So, like, in high school, playing poker was really popular.
Yeah,
So we would play cards, and every once in a while, like, depending on whose house we were at, some of our friends or my dad would have UFC or Pride fights on. So that kind of sparked some interest. And then we started like boxing in the backyard. And then one of my best friends, Eddie, he's still one of my best friends to this day. He was boxing like legitimately, like had some amateur boxing matches. And we would always talk. He'd show me some techniques. And then one of my other friends started doing jujitsu. So I was like, man, you guys, this is awesome. So I talked to my parents. My parents have always been so supportive and super cool. They have worked very hard to, like provide everything for myself and my brothers. And one year for Christmas, like, hey, do you want anything? And I was like, if you guys see a boxing gym and if I can get a boxing membership, that'd be great. And dude, sure enough, early January, my mom had actually found a boxing gym and took me up there one Saturday. And dude, I've trained pretty much every day since then.
so is that something that you wanted to do for a long time, or is that something you kind of just stumbled your way into because of Pride being on the television, like things like that? Or did you have that ambition to be a fighter one day?
No, I had no clue I would ever compete. The only reason I ever,
You're talking about not thinking you'd ever be a fighter.
oh yeah, so I still enjoy training, the camaraderie, the troubleshooting, the decision making, the hard work. I enjoy training so much I would just show up every day, train every day, twice a day. And after about 6, 8 months, my instructor was like, "Hey, why don't you compete?" And I was like, "I don't know, coach. What does that mean?" I was like, "Sign me up." So I actually took a kickboxing match,
Yeah,
maybe 6 months, 8 months into it. And granted, I wasn't very good, but I was flexible, and I won the kick with a head kick knockout and was like, and we had shin guards and headgear, and I still knocked the guy out, and I was like set. And dude, I started doing jujitsu tournaments, and it was before jujitsu was like as popular as it is now. So I was like a teenager with no physical background,
mm.
competing, but there was no teens division, so I had to go against these adult white belts. And I'll tell you, I got my ass kicked for about 2 years in jujitsu tournaments before I started really winning some matches. And it just made me like a tough, gritty competitor that I am now. And I really look back fondly on those days. It was before the iPhone was so popular, and I
Yeah.
don't have a lot of documentation. I don't have a lot of pictures or videos of old fights or old tournaments or even old promotions. And I kind of wish I would have focused a little more on documenting some of that stuff.
At least you got the memories right. You can always think about it. Um, so that's kind of all the questions I had prepared, but there's two questions I like to ask to every fighter I have on, just general kind of random questions. One of them is, do you have any funny or unusual sort of weigh-in stories? Because quite often fighters will have a daft story that's happened to do a weigh-in.
Yeah, so this is a two story in one way. And I fought a guy named Brandon Farron for Legacy. It was my second or third televised fight, which was pretty
Yeah.
cool. And we were at weigh-ins, and there's this ripped blonde lady on the scale, and I've never seen her before. And I'm like, damn, who's this super ripped lady? Turns out it's Holly Holm. And in that fight, she head kicked that girl, Lana Jones, and it was a nasty knockout.
Yeah.
And then for whatever reason, it was before I started wearing compression shorts. I had these boxers, and they were like my favorite boxers, and they were old. And I probably should have thrown them away, but I wore them to weigh-ins, and I must have got 20 messages from friends telling me I need to stop wearing those underwear because they were so old. And then one of my friends' wives was like, "Yeah, I was afraid a gust of wind was going to come by and blow them off." but yeah, so I tossed those boxers away and got a little more professional with my weigh-in attire.
Fair enough. The other question is, if you could kind of test yourself against any fighter, relative or near your weight class, doesn't have to be exact, past or present, what's your kind of dream matchup to test your skills?
Man, that's a good question. Honestly, the fight against Pettis is a fight I never knew I wanted. Honestly, a fight against Cowboy Cerrone would be like legendary,
Yeah.
or even a fight against Nate Diaz would be cool as well. And what's wild is, I'm planning on beating Pettis in this fight. Those fights are possibilities after this, which again blows my mind.
Yeah.
Just any of like the super OG gangsters, those are the fights that I want, just to like kind of cement my own legacy and to just prove to myself that like I belong in the octagon with some of these heavy hitters. It'd be the coolest thing.
Well, definitely. I'd really like the sound of that Cowboy fight. I think don't think any fans will be unhappy with that one, to be honest. But yeah, that's kind of all I've got prepared. So I've really enjoyed this. So thanks a lot for your time, and best of luck against Anthony Pettis.
You got it, man. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Cheers. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you.